Right now on Morning News Now, historic flooding hammers the heart of Texas. The tragedy already claiming more than 80 lives, while rescuers work around the clock to try to keep that number from growing. With dozens still reported missing, we are tracking the threat of even more rain in the hard-hit hill country. Also this morning, President Trump is set to meet with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as the push for a Gaza ceasefire ramps up. What we know about a potential deal amid a new wave of deadly attacks in Gaza. Plus, on the clock, dozens of countries are now facing a new deadline to reach a deal on President Trump's tariffs, all while his landmark budget law takes effect. The fallout now facing millions of Americans and what it means for some of the country's most vulnerable. And box office boom. Big budget blockbusters are cleaning up this summer movie season. But is it enough to bring struggling theaters back from the brink? We are going in for a close-up on the movie industry. Lots of movies that we've been talking about that have really been doing well.
Most definitely. Good morning. Good to have you with us on a very busy Monday morning. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. We're, of course, going to begin with the very latest on this catastrophic flooding in central Texas. Officials still don't know how many people are missing after heavy rainfall triggered a historic 26-foot surge of the Guadalupe River on Friday. The urgent search and rescue operations continue this morning after more storms moved into the region overnight, threatening to cause even more flash floods.
At least 81 people have died, 28 of them children. Most of those deaths happened in Kerr County, that's to the west of Austin. Rescuers there are still searching for at least 10 girls reported missing from a summer camp called Mystic. The camp released a statement last night saying, quote, Camp Mystic is grieving the loss of our beloved campers and counselors. Our hearts are broken alongside our families that are enduring this unimaginable tragedy. Governor Greg Abbott says he remains committed to finding those missing campers after visiting Mystic over the weekend.
It was nothing short of horrific to see what those young children went through. And we will remain 100% dedicated, searching for every single one of the children who were at Camp Mystic, as well as anybody else in the entire riverbed, to make sure that they're going to be recovered.
The National Weather Service is defending its forecasting amid questions over whether people received enough warning. The White House also dismissed concerns over whether staffing cuts to the National Weather Service may have played a role in this tragedy. NBC News correspondent Jay Gray is in Kerrville, Texas this morning. Jay, good morning.
Yeah. Joe, Savannah, good morning to you. And we are standing on what is a river path here in Kerrville. And this evidence of that wall of water that moved through, understand that we're more than 20 feet above up a hill from the normal banks of the Guadalupe River. You can see the tree even before sunrise. You can see some of the debris, the limbs pushed up against the railing here. And look, yesterday we had more rain and more evacuations. Today, forecasters say we will see more rain, at times intense here. Like the floodwaters tearing apart the Texas Hill Country, the rescue and recovery effort here is relentless.
That is where our energy, our resources, and our attention are directed. Nothing is more important than bringing comfort and clarity to those who are waiting and grieving.
Hundreds of first responders working around the clock, going into the fourth straight day now.
The Department of Public Safety is offering any and every resource that we have to help with those searches, whether it be boat teams, rescue, divers, helicopters, drone operators, drones.
High-profile military vehicles, thermal and night vision technology. Crews combing the strike zone on foot, others on horseback. This team uncovering the body of a young victim in the debris.
We decided we should look in that spot a little bit more before we went back down, and that's when we found it.
We covered her with a towel.
At least 80 are dead. Dozens still missing, including a group of young girls and their counselor from Camp Mystic.
I think while it was going on, I kind of felt like a sense of numbness.
13-year-old Stella Thompson escaped. She and a group of fellow campers led out by the National Guard through debris, overturned vehicles, camp gear and clothes littering the trees, rescue divers in the water.
Saying it out loud is making me realize what actually happened and how bad it actually is.
A realization so many in Central Texas are struggling with right now. You know, with so much damage, with so much that's been lost, I think, frankly, and you can understand this, many here are still in shock. But one thing they say they haven't lost is their hope, and that includes the search teams. Joe, Savannah, they do believe that they are going to find survivors today and say they're going to stay at this for as long as necessary until everyone is found.
No doubt everyone is grateful to those teams. Jay Gray reporting from Texas. Jay, thank you.
Well, we are learning more about the victims of these devastating floods, including several children, and the heroic actions of those who tried to save them. NBC News correspondent Morgan Chesky, who is from Kerrville, Texas, spoke with one young survivor about what she went through.
I think while it was going on, I kind of felt like a sense of numbness.
For Stella Thompson, reality still sounds unbelievable. The 13-year-old, one of hundreds evacuated from Camp Mystic, amid a river turned nightmare.
You'd see kayaks like in trees, and it was kind of horrific because we had no idea. There were huge trees ripped out of the ground, and it didn't look like Camp Mystic anymore.
Now, as uncertainty hangs heavy, tragic closure coming to many. Renee Smystrola, Eloise Peck, and Janie Hunt confirmed as 3 of the lives lost at Camp Mystic, where 10 campers and 1 counselor still remain missing. Smystrola's family sharing, while not the outcome we prayed for, we are thankful she was with her friends and having the time of her life. The family of fellow camper Eloise Peck sharing, the family is grieving and processing this unimaginable loss. Here at Camp Mystic, where volunteers are still scouring the river, friends of the family say owner Dick Eastland sprang into rescue mode, putting multiple girls inside an SUV as those waters rose. He tried to drive to safety, but was soon overtaken. On social media, his grandson writing, if he wasn't going to die of natural causes, this was the only other way, saving the girls that he so loved.
The first text it was already at her bed. That's what woke her up. I mean, it came up so fast. She had so many hobbies.
Jeeper and Julie Ragsdale are still coming to terms with the abrupt loss of their beloved sister Jane, the longtime head of the Heart of the Hills camp nearby, which also flooded.
Sounds like she devoted her entire life to helping these girls.
She just wanted, to me, like she just wanted to give back her childhood experiences to other children. It gave her so much joy that I think that's what drew her to it.
But amid so much loss, stories of survival and heroism.
It's a miracle that she did survive it, I think. I mean, it's a God thing to me.
Carl Jeter spotting this woman clutching onto a tree as floodwaters rushed beneath. Her car long since washed away. Jeter flagging a DPS agent to radio firefighters who were finally able to rescue her after the more than 4-hour ordeal.
I mean, it had to have been like swimming a marathon. I mean, it just, I don't get, I mean, I'm not going to try to understand it. It's just absolutely a miracle.
Morgan Chesky, NBC News.
More weather troubles to the east. Thousands of people in the Carolinas were left without power after Tropical Storm Chantal made landfall on Sunday. The storm dumped up to 10 inches of rain in parts of North Carolina and spawned at least 2 tornadoes. Forecasters say the storm is expected to continue to move northeast towards southern Maryland as a tropical depression, and its effects could be felt as far north as New Jersey in the coming days.
And Chantal is just one of the problems facing the millions of Americans who are trying to make their way home after the busy 4th of July holiday weekend. NBC News senior national correspondent Stephanie Gosk is at Newark Airport in New Jersey with the latest on how the nation's airports are holding up.
Hey there, Joe and Savannah. Well, if you were going to leave from Newark Airport, today would be the day to do it. It's very calm here. Things are moving smoothly. But throughout the New York City area airports over the holiday weekend, 2.2 million people were expected through here. But at least in this area, the weather was okay. That was not the case across the country. Specifically in the Carolinas, it was absolutely terrible. They were hit by a tropical storm Chantal, that came on land and was quickly downgraded to a tropical depression, but it did some damage in some places, dropping up to 7 inches of rain, with 60-mile-per-hour winds. There were roadways that were flooded, even in one section of a highway that completely collapsed. Then in Chicago, on the worst possible day, at the worst possible moment, yesterday on Sunday, they got hit by some tough thunderstorms, and that brought Chicago O'Hare, one of the most important and busiest airports in this country, to a complete ground stop. And when that happens, as you know, things are triggered throughout the country. You know, here in the Northeast, they're going to be dealing with some heat over the next few days, but it was certainly a tough weekend, especially if you were taking to the roads. They estimated that 62 million people were in their cars this weekend. I have a trick, however. I had to drive from New York City to Connecticut, which is a notoriously bad stretch of highway, but using my strategy, I barely even saw a car. That's because I left at 5 a.m. Definitely not a strategy for everybody. Guys, back to you.
Thanks, Steph.
All right, we've got more details on the severe weather, including more rain in the forecast for Texas with your morning News Now weather.
Meteorologist Michelle Grossman joins us. Hi, Michelle. Good morning.
Hi there, guys. Yeah, we are looking at central Texas once again today because even seeing storms right now, isolated showers and storms, and some of them are producing heavy rainfall. That will be the story all throughout this Monday. Still a lot of moisture in the air here, so any storm could unleash 1 to 3 inches per rain, even 4 inches of rain, and some spots could see isolated amounts of up to 10. So we're watching this very closely. Obviously, the grounds are very saturated, and you can see those brighter colors. That's where we're seeing the heavier rainfall, so certainly scattered across central Texas, and hopefully and thankfully will start to dry out tomorrow. But for today, we're going to see the rain falling. We do have a flood watch through 7 o'clock local time. That includes places like Brady, Austin, San Antonio. Where you see the green, that is the flood watch. So as we go throughout time here, we're going to watch those scattered and very slow-moving thunderstorms continuing, likely dropping a lot of rain in spots. The ground is completely saturated. We had a drought that was ongoing. That was part of the problem, too. It couldn't absorb all that water. There's a lot of limestone in this area, so we could see runoff once again. And then by tomorrow, we'll see that heavy rain shifting towards the East Texas area and drying out across the hill country, thankfully. So we're going to watch that, and we should keep it pretty dry throughout most of the rest of the work week. Again, isolated amounts up to 10 inches. Typically, we're going to see 1, 2, 3, 4 inches of rain, but could see more in some spots. That's the big story on this Monday. Of course, we're watching severe storms in the northern plains, the central high plains. Could see damaging winds, tornadoes, even some hail there. Notice that front stretching from New England into the Midwest. That is a spot that we could see some storms as well. We could see some flash flooding. And then we have the influence of Tropical Depression Chantal. That's going to bring the chance for flash flooding as well into the Mid-Atlantic. The flood threat does continue too in portions of the Mid-Atlantic. North Carolina was hit hard yesterday. Most of this is now moving into Virginia. You could see once again those bright colors bringing that heavy rain, and we will see the chance for flash flooding. Kind of see that spin there. So we're seeing winds gusting with these storms, and we do have flood alerts here, flash flood warnings. That's in the red, and a flood watch too is in the green. Back to you both.
All right, a lot going on. Michelle Grossman, thank you so much.
Yeah. Dozens of countries are facing a new deadline this week to reach tariff deals with the Trump administration or face higher rates. You might recall back in the spring, President Trump announced big tariff hikes, then paused them for 90 days, giving countries time to try and renegotiate with the White House. Well, that deadline expires Wednesday. This all comes as Elon Musk announced over the weekend he has set up a new political party. He calls it the America Party. NBC News White House correspondent Yamiche Alcindor has the latest.
The global economy braces for what comes next, as President Trump says countries that don't make trade deals by this Wednesday, July 9th, will now pay skyrocketing tariffs starting August 1st.
I think we'll have most countries done by July 9th, yeah. Either a letter or a deal.
The Treasury Secretary warning that those take-it-or-leave-it offers will come at steep prices.
You will boomerang back to your April 2nd tariff level. So I think we're going to see a lot of deals very quickly.
Back in April at the White House, the president laying out a series of increase in tariffs on dozens of countries. 30% for South Africa, 24% for Japan, 20% for the European Union. The president then pausing most of those rates for negotiations. So far, the U.S. has only announced frameworks of deals with a few countries, including the UK, Vietnam, and China. A White House economic advisor saying this.
It's important that countries line up to make concessions to get those deals, to convince the president that they should get lower tariff rates.
Meanwhile, as President Trump and Republicans continue to celebrate the passage of the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill, Elon Musk, once a close Trump ally, announcing the formation of a new political party after lashing out at the massive bill for adding too much to the national debt. The president responding.
I think it's ridiculous to start a third party. We have a tremendous success with the Republican Party, so he can have fun with it.
Yamiche Alcindor, NBC News.
For more here, let's bring in NBC News senior national politics reporter Jonathan Allen. John, good morning. Thanks for being with us. So let's start with this looming Wednesday deadline this week for countries to renegotiate tariff levels. This was originally announced back in April. We just heard a little bit of that there in Yamisha's piece. President Trump paused the rates a week later to set the stage for negotiations back at that April time. How firm is this upcoming deadline?
It sounds like it's not very firm at all. What you've got is the Treasury Secretary saying that letters are going to go out this week to all of these affected countries and basically giving them till August 1st to make changes, to make deals. So the can is being kicked further down the road. The president has divided his own party badly with this tariff policy. He has upset people in the business community. He's upset people in Wall Street in terms of the finance sector. And so, you know, the arrival of tariffs, of course, is bad for exporters in other countries, but also I think what we're seeing is there's some fear within the White House that it will be bad for President Trump and for the United States.
Yeah, let's talk more here. I mean, John, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is calling this sort of a boomerang. Countries will see a boomerang back to the high tariff levels that the president announced in April if the deals aren't made. The White House's theory was that, you know, every country would come forward desperate to reach a deal by the deadline. Is that what's happening at all? I mean, what are the challenges facing the administration right now?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think a lot of these countries would love to continue to do business with the United States at rates that are favorable to them, but they do not want to do business at rates that are unfavorable to them if they have alternatives. And so I think what you're seeing is the opening of sort of new pipelines for countries that have been doing business with the United States, and them certainly looking for other trading partners to replace or at least mitigate the damage from not having the United States import as much stuff. So look, if President Trump's desire is to have everything made in the United States and to bring in nothing from other countries, then high tariffs on other countries is a good policy. But if it's to create revenue by putting tariffs on other countries that are exporting to the United States, I think that you're going to see that revenue diminished greatly by other countries simply choosing different trading partners.
John, let's talk about Elon's America Party. He posted a poll on X, even asking his followers if they would support it. But what do we know at this point about the party and any impact it could have, maybe like on midterms next year?
Yeah, we don't know much about the party because it hasn't been formed yet. And of course, there are a lot of complications, and I don't want to go deep into the weeds, but basically to establish a third party in all of the states that you'd want to compete in, this is a huge challenge. Of course, Elon Musk has effectively limitless money to pour into such a project, so maybe he would have some success in at least getting a party on the ballot. But as far as the midterms go, I think Democrats are welcoming the idea of a third party run by Elon Musk because so many Democrats now find him, intolerable. So I think they see a third party as splitting Republicans, splitting traditional Republicans, rather than coming up the middle between the two parties.
All right, Jonathan Allen, great to see you. Thank you so much.
Much more to come here on Morning News Now, including the major test facing our national parks, how they're preparing for larger crowds with fewer workers.
Up first, though, push for peace, the renewed optimism about a ceasefire amid a new wave of deadly attacks in Gaza. We have the latest next.
Welcome back. President Trump is hosting Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House today amid a renewed push for a ceasefire hostage deal in Gaza.
Israel and Hamas held the first session of indirect talks in Qatar yesterday over a U.S.-sponsored 60-day truce. Now, despite these negotiations, Israel is showing no signs of slowing down its attacks on Gaza. On Sunday, Gaza's director of field hospitals told NBC News that at least 80 Palestinians were killed by Israeli strikes and shelling across the Strip. Well, speaking yesterday, President Trump said he was optimistic a ceasefire could be reached this week.
I think we're close to a deal on Gaza. I think there's a good chance we have a deal with Hamas during the coming week, pertaining to quite a few of the hostages. Yeah. You know, we've gotten a lot of the hostages out, but pertaining to the remaining hostages, quite a few of them will be coming out.
Here to talk more about this, NBC News White House correspondent Monica Alba and NBC News international correspondent Matt Bradley, who is in Tel Aviv. Matt, let's start with you. Tell us what this 60-day deal involves and what came out of yesterday's ceasefire talks in Qatar. What sticking points remain?
Yeah, well, according to the Associated Press, this would involve 60 days in which 10 living and 18 dead hostages, in other words, remains of some of these dead hostages, would be released over that 60-day period. It also says that it would allow in a lot of aid into the Gaza Strip, which, according to this draft, which was seen by the Associated Press, would be distributed by the United Nations and the Palestinian Red Crescent. And it gives no information about the future of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. And that's crucial. That is the U.S. and Israeli-backed organization that has been distributing aid through 4 distribution points in the Gaza Strip for the past about 2 months. And each of those, each day we've been seeing with that aid distribution regime has seen dozens of people killed at UN sites and at GHF sites. So, you know, we don't know what would be the fate of that aid distribution, but this doesn't actually mention an end to the war, this draft document that was reviewed by the Associated Press. And the reason why that's so important is because that's been Hamas's long-standing demand, that any process that involves releasing more hostages that are held by Hamas would necessarily involve leading up to the end of Israel's fighting in the Gaza Strip. Now, this is unacceptable to Hamas if there's no, end to the war described in these documents. The Israelis have said that it's unacceptable to them if they don't finish the fight and destroy all of Hamas. So we're still kind of at this impasse that is very familiar to these negotiators, where it looks as though both sides are taking positions that are essentially incompatible with each other. And that's why we saw these negotiations yesterday. They ended inconclusively. But there is, I should tell you guys, a lot of pressure now and a lot of talk on all sides about finally coming to a deal.
So, Monica, while they might have been inconclusive, the president seems hopeful that he can get the ceasefire deal done this week. What will the president's message be to Netanyahu when they meet later?
Yeah, and President Trump has hosted Prime Minister Netanyahu several times. He's had so many different phone calls with him, especially in the last couple of weeks, given what we saw between Israel and Iran and the role that the U.S. played in that conflict. And we know that the president is pushing for this diplomatic ceasefire. But just as you just talked about with Matt, there are so many times that the U.S. has gotten close to feeling like they're on the brink of a deal, only for those talks to collapse. We saw it time and time again in the Biden administration, and we've seen some false starts in this administration as well. But both sides do believe there are some external factors because of what just happened in terms of weakening Iran that perhaps could lead to this moment. And we know that President Trump had a meeting with Idan Alexander, who was the last believed to be a U.S. citizen who was held alive in captivity by Hamas in Gaza, who was released in May. He came to the White House with his family. And we know that the president has really been pushing for the remaining Israeli hostages to be released, as well as for the remains of some of the U.S. citizens who were killed but are still being held in Gaza to be released back to their families. And this is really a moment where the president thinks he can kind of operate in this foreign policy atmosphere by applying that pressure. And we know that Prime Minister Netanyahu is going to be meeting with the president's top envoy, Steve Witkoff, when he comes to the White House today as well.
Matt, for Palestinians in Gaza, the need for a ceasefire is great right now. We've been getting near daily reports of aid seekers being killed by Israeli fire at these aid distribution sites. Late last week, 2 U.S. contractors, speaking on condition of anonymity, told the Associated Press their colleagues were firing live ammunition in the direction of Palestinians who were waiting for food. What more can you tell us here?
That's right. The GHF, or we heard from the Associated Press that these two men who said that they were working for GHF contractors said that their colleagues were untrained and that they were allowed to fire into the crowds. The GHF had said that there has been no incident related to any of their distribution points that involved any massive injuries or killings. But the Palestinians who we've been speaking to have said that on almost every day we've been seeing dozens of people killed at these aid distribution points. Again, some of them belonging to the GHF, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Others, one of the deadliest days a couple of weeks ago was at a United Nations distribution effort. So, you know, we are seeing a lot of bloodletting, considering that for Palestinians, this is a desperate effort to try to get food. They're trying to stay alive, and in the act of doing it, they can get killed. And that's a very grave situation, and one that a lot of Palestinians are looking toward Washington for some sort of solution to this. That, again, the terms of the deal that we've been seeing discussed does allow in quite a bit of additional humanitarian aid and could relieve some of these problems, but there has to be a deal first.
All right. Matt Bradley, Monica Alba, thank you both.
Well, back here in the U.S., summer is in full swing. For a lot of people, that means a trip to one of America's national parks. But this year's staffing cuts made by the federal government are posing a major test for some of those iconic sites drawing big crowds. NBC News correspondent Kathy Park has the details.
Our national parks have never been more popular.
It's just been beautiful, and we've loved every minute of it.
With a record-breaking 331 million visits across hundreds of sites last year alone. But this year, tourists could be heading into uncharted territory. Citing internal data from the Interior Department, a watchdog group says the National Park Service has lost 24% of its permanent staff since January.
I think if I were to describe the Smokies in a word or a phrase, it would be a roller coaster.
Jackie Harp is the CEO of Smokies Life, a nonprofit offering educational services and support to Great Smoky Mountains National Park. She says her organization has been stepping in for years, helping the most visited national park in the country, and that this year people may notice some setbacks.
There's been some reduced capacity around things like campgrounds and picnic areas. Those all opened later than typical.
Katie Brandert and her family drove in from Nebraska. They say they were aware of possible disruptions even before they left home.
We did things like looked ahead on the national park websites to see where there are extra passes we need to get or admission kind of vouchers if they were going to kind of cut back on the number of tourists coming through the area.
And challenges aren't just isolated to the Smokies. They're happening in national parks across the country.
A National Park Service official telling NBC News at Yosemite seasonal hirings were delayed earlier in the year, and as a result, some staff, including scientists and park managers, took on extra duties like cleaning restrooms and trash maintenance, which lasted for about a month. That official adding the park is now well staffed and they can provide safe, meaningful experiences for visitors. Jan Bergman, visiting Yosemite from Ohio, telling us he noticed large crowds, but nothing big enough to ruin his trip.
We had already booked our travel, so we came, figured we would just make the best of it.
And it's not just tourists. Some nearby businesses say they're facing challenges. Lee Zimmerman owns and operates Rush Creek Lodge.
Bookings have been way down this year, for the summer in particular. People were scared about whether the parks were going to be sufficiently staffed. That ended up not being a problem, but at the time that scared people away.
Over at Crater Lake National Park in Oregon, Kevin Heatley says he became the park superintendent in January, and nearly 5 months later, he stepped down, citing the strain on staffing.
Crater Lake is getting by on a thread right now. We have employees that are putting in routinely on a 2-week pay cycle, putting in 60 hours of overtime on snow removal. That's just not sustainable.
We reached out to the National Park Service regarding changes to staffing this year, but haven't heard back yet. While this summer has been running smoothly, some fear what the future could hold for America's crown jewels.
The national park system is iconic. It is beloved by the American people. If you want to shoot yourselves in the foot, mess with the national park system.
Kathy Park, NBC News, Great Smoky Mountains National Park.
Well, we are, of course, staying on top of the breaking news this morning, this tragedy in Texas.
After the break, we're going to hear from a survivor literally swept out of his home, how he made it out alive. That's next.
We are back with more on the catastrophic flooding that struck Texas on Friday as the death toll continues to rise this morning. Officials say at least 81 people have died across 6 counties in central Texas. That includes 68 deaths in Kerr County alone, with 28 of them children. Some of those children are believed to be girls from a Christian summer camp. It's called Camp Mystic. And officials say 10 other girls from that same camp remain missing.
These images you're seeing show just some of the devastation left behind after the Guadalupe River surged as high as 26 feet. President Trump has signed a major disaster declaration for Kerr County and said he will probably visit the state later this week. Survivors are now reflecting on just how quickly the floodwaters hit.
I'm just like, oh, it's just another little storm, because I looked out the window and it was barely sprinkling outside, so I had no indication that the river was going to be right outside my driveway.
And then all of a sudden,
yeah, it was there. I mean, it was there. There was nothing you could do about it besides leave.
As search and recovery efforts intensify across central Texas, the National Weather Service is warning of even more flash floods in the region, powered by another round of thunderstorms and heavy rain.
We want to bring in Libby Evans-Fuller and Doug Fuller. They survived the flooding in their hometown of Ingram, Texas. Thank you both very much for joining us this morning. Libby, I'll start with you. If you could just tell us, how are you doing this morning and where you're finding shelter right now?
Right now, we're at my in-laws on an air mattress, but we're safe. I'm doing good this morning. This out here is the closest I've been back to the to it since Friday morning when we got ripped out of our house.
Let's talk more about that, Doug. I understand, I mean, you were essentially swept out of your home. Walk us through exactly what happened and the amazing thing you did to survive.
Well, it started about 4 a.m. and it had been raining a little bit, and I went to go just see how the weather was doing, and at about midnight there was a motorist on a motorcycle who stopped in to ride out the storm, and I wanted to see how he was doing. And when I got out to the parking lot, we could hear the river, but we couldn't quite see the water yet. When I got back to the house, I noticed it was coming up into the parking lot. I went inside to wake my wife up and tell her we might get some water damage, thinking that maybe our floor might get damaged. By the time she was done getting dressed, I was watching our car float away. And
so fast.
I realized that it was going to be a lot more than just some damage to my floor. And within about 10 minutes, we had water almost up to the ceiling. Wow. We took refuge on our mattress and stayed there as long as we could, not wanting to go out the door, but not wanting to stay in without an exit. Eventually, the doors burst open, and we jammed ourselves in the doorway as long as we could until eventually a large swell of water sucked us out. And a neighbor who was outside as well were clinging onto a support post in front of our door. And we were able to grab hands, and I was able to grab my wife. And we held on for about the next 2 hours until the waters resided and just rode it out. It was terrifying.
Just amazing, and that you were even with neighbors who were doing the same thing. Libby, I know that you went to work after this whole ordeal. Tell us about that.
I did. Well, I was actually supposed to work a double on Friday, and I was looking forward to it because it was the 4th of July. And, of course, couldn't all this happen in the morning. But I had my father-in-law go by work. They had taken that once we got out, once the tow trucks got us to the fire station called the ambulance for me. We called from my in-laws from the hospital, and I asked them to go by my work and let them know I wouldn't be there today. I was at the hospital, and because I didn't know if they were going to be open or closed or what. And I tried we got home from the hospital. I tried to call work, and they weren't answering. It turns out they had closed. But the next morning, I got up. We went to the Walmart and got me some work clothes, and I went to work the next morning and prepared to work that double because I was scheduled to double again. And I walked in, and nobody expected to see me. I had no idea that there were missing persons stuff going on. I had no idea about any of it. We lost the phones. So I had no idea. But we got there. My boss was like, "What are you doing here?" And it was amazing. We got to take food to first responders. It was great. And I just worked through because, you know, we need my wages right now. And it really, I didn't know how we were going to make it if I didn't start working back immediately to rebuild, you know, what were we going to do?
That
So
says
I
so
just
much.
went, and it kind of kept it off my mind.
That says so much about the spirit of the area, too, that not only did you go to work, but you went to help the first responders who are all trying to make a difference there. Doug, we only have a few seconds left here, but this is the first time you've been back to the scene. Just what goes through your mind when you look around you right now?
I'm really thankful that we made it out, because there's a lot of people that didn't. And the death toll will probably rise, and you know, we might have lost the house and the car and all that stuff, but we still have each other, and you know, that's what's worth all of it right there. This is my rock right here, and that's what keeps us going. And hopefully we can help somehow give back. You know, my father's out there right now with the cleanup effort, and those are the real heroes. Those are the guys that are rebuilding. Those guys and the first responders.
Libby and Doug, we're so happy you're okay. Amazing to hear you so quickly after what you've been through, talking about helping other people. We appreciate your time this morning, and we're praying for your community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We've got the most important thing, and that's each other.
Yeah.
We were just talking about all those volunteers. Hundreds are stepping in to give a helping hand to communities that are devastated by these floods.
It includes nonprofit organizations like Mercy Chefs. They provide hot, chef-prepared meals to victims, volunteers, and first responders during natural disasters.
Mercy Chefs co-founder Anne LeBlanc joins us now with more. Anne, I know we've had you on before when tragedies like this happen, but please remind us. I know it's incredibly busy for you, but remind us what it is you do at times like this.
We go in and try to bring a little bit of hope in the midst of devastation with a hot meal. It's a pretty amazing thing when people just have that little bit of comfort that comes through a handcrafted, chef-prepared meal.
We also know you have chefs, you have staff members who live and work in Wimberley, Texas. That's roughly 100 miles east of Kerr County. It's an area that has dealt with its own devastating floods over time.
Yeah.
How does it feel to have a disaster that's so close to home for some of your team, some of whom may have seen this happen to their own community?
Well, one of the remarkable things about camp here in Kerr County is that, so many people across the state have sent their children here for camp, have been campers themselves. One of our staff chefs was actually a counselor for 7 years, and it's at Mystic Camp. And so it's just been very difficult for her to be here. She lives currently in Wimberley, but just seeing the devastation all around the community is just, there's such a heaviness here of the massive loss of life. And it's so difficult when it's children.
You helped start this organization in the aftermath of another huge tragedy, Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans. That was almost 2 decades ago. How do you prepare for disasters of this magnitude and respond and get there just so quickly?
Well, we realize that it's those early hours, especially for first responders, that often, I know we fed first responders Saturday night. Our team in Wimberley prepared meals and brought them over from a kitchen there that we helped equip. And, you know, it was just the first hot meal that they had since they'd been out. We're meeting first responders that, you know, haven't slept in 36 hours. And then they come to us, and it's astounding, but we're able to move quickly. We have all of our equipment staged. We don't take a lot of time. We're not very bureaucratic in our logistics setup, and so we just get people moving quickly. So 4th of July, we woke up to hearing the disaster and had everything packed and ready, and the team started moving on Saturday and got here from our warehouse in Tanner, Alabama. And our rest of our crew, as I said, 3 chefs started making food on Saturday.
Yeah. And we only have a few seconds left, but just tell us, what do people need most on the ground and how can people help?
I think in many ways they need prayer. It's the heartbreak is just palpable everywhere, and they need resources. They need funding to the cleanup and rebuild that's going to be required here.
And LeBlanc with Mercy Chefs, thank you for your time this morning, and most importantly, thank you for everything you're doing right now.
It's incredible.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us on.
Well, coming up, Medicaid on the cutting board.
After the break, we're going to take a look at the impact President Trump's landmark legislation will have and what it could mean for some of the country's most vulnerable. We are back with the life-altering impact of President Trump's domestic policy package, which is now the law of the land. This new law makes sweeping budget cuts and changes to programs like Medicaid, a lifeline for millions of lower-income Americans who rely on it for health care. NBC News Now anchor Zincle Esamoah spoke with a Missouri mother. She's concerned she could lose coverage for her adult son who requires around-the-clock care.
For Kimberly Gallagher, the loss of her husband to cancer 6 years ago also meant the loss of her private insurance. It's health care she desperately needs to care for her son Daniel in Kansas City, Missouri. He's had a rare genetic condition since birth.
Well, Daniel's a little different than the typical person with Prader-Willi syndrome. He's lower functioning and he's nonverbal because of the autism.
Daniel is now 31. What does his care look like day to day now?
He requires total care.
Gallagher is enrolled in Medicaid, but new work requirements in President Trump's newly passed One Big Beautiful Bill Act put her at risk of losing that coverage.
You supported President Trump, and this policy has been spearheaded by him. I wonder if it matches what you were expecting or what your hope is moving forward.
No, it doesn't match. But again, I still have the part of me that wonders if somewhere in that 200 and some odd pages, if there's something that I'm missing that will still protect us.
Around 18.5 million Americans will now be required to prove they work, study, or volunteer no less than 80 hours a month, with some exceptions, according to the Congressional Budget Office.
What's the problem with trying to verify individuals when it comes to their work status and employment status?
I was on the ground in Arkansas when the state tried requirements just like this in 2018, and we saw working people, disabled people, caregivers, all of them getting cut off the program left and right.
The idea of work requirements for Medicaid is not new. In 2023, Georgia introduced similar parameters still in place. And in 2018, Arkansas did the same. Former legal aid attorney Kevin DeLeban filed a suit against Arkansas's Medicaid changes, a federal judge and then the Biden administration ultimately blocking the work requirements. More than 18,000 people lost coverage in that state.
Imagine getting a 10-page letter today that says something that you barely understand, right? Because it sounds like you might be eligible, but you might not be eligible and you're not sure. You're buried under an avalanche of paperwork, red tape, hoops to jump through.
The work requirement change could have a major cost-cutting effect, with $325 billion worth of savings estimated by the Congressional Budget Office.
When you're talking about Medicaid, we need to make sure the program is sustained for the people it's intended for. That's, the elderly, the disabled, young pregnant mothers down on the luck.
Now families like the Gallaghers say they're in limbo. In 2019, Gallagher relinquished custody of her son so she could get paid by the state of Missouri to be his full-time caregiver, a provision under Missouri state law.
Just the act of going into court and, declaring that you're giving up your son. And I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Today, she fears she'll lose even more.
You've supported him in the past. If you could talk to him right now, what would you say?
I want to know what he was thinking. The politicians say that Medicaid is not going to be affected except for the people who, supposedly are cheating the system. And it's not supposed to affect the disabled. And so I just want some more guarantees.
The family seeking certainty as the health coverage they rely on is set to change.
Our thanks to Zincle Esamoah for that report, and this story was produced in collaboration with our partner, KFF Health News.
For more on the impact this new law could have on Americans, especially women and children, we are joined by NBC News medical contributor Dr. Kavita Patel. Dr. Patel, thanks as always for joining us. So Medicaid is this program set to sustain the largest cuts in this mega bill. There are nearly 72 million people enrolled in Medicaid in the U.S. You could see on your screen here also the stat, 19% of adult women, 19 to 64. Who is most at risk of losing access to health care?
Yeah, just given the widespread cuts, almost everybody, including some of the people Zane Clay interviewed, but the most kind of vulnerable population, as you mentioned, Savannah, are the most impacted is women and children. We have almost nearly half of the births, especially in rural counties, are Medicaid births. So that means that when you kind of combine the impact to states that expanded Medicaid and have a large rural population, that's kind of the intersection of where you'll see the highest impacts. And this could lead to even higher maternity deserts. That means that there are many counties today without these cuts, Savannah and Joe, that do not have access to maternity care. This is only going to get likely doubled and tripled over the next decade that these cuts go into effect.
So when we talk about women's health, what are the services that could be most affected by Medicaid cuts?
Yeah, the most kind of, a lot of people want to kind of say like, oh, these are just certain services and it's not all services, all health, it's all healthcare, Joe, because if you think about what Medicaid funds, it doesn't fund just targeted programs, it just funds general access to healthcare. So as you're taking away kind of that access and you're impacting rural hospitals, these are hospitals and clinics that are likely to close. Some have already announced just since the bill's passage that they've needed to close. So it's going to everything from cancer screening, preventive services, and of course, some of these like very important maternity kind of before you have the baby and then kind of post-maternal services, as well as those kind of the most vulnerable period for children, the first couple of years. This is when we're going to be looking for providers. Who's going to take care of these people? We still don't know.
Yeah, we have another stat here on childbirth. More than 40% of childbirths in the U.S. are financed by Medicaid in 2022. That's according to this health policy nonprofit organization we partnered with here, KFF. You've touched on this, but just what could this mean for children, childbirth and beyond?
Yeah, so from childbirth, it does mean that we're going to see more counties where people are going to have to travel not 5 miles, not 10 miles, but potentially hundreds of miles just to be able to deliver a baby, get that important prenatal care. And then for children's services, pediatric services, all the way to specialized pediatric services, anything from cardiology, neurology, just essential services that I think we take for granted in many areas. These are not going to be available. And to be candid with you, this is forcing businesses like hospitals and clinics, which have to maintain a financial balance. This is forcing them to accept fewer Medicaid patients.
Dr. Kavita Patel, always great to have you. Important info. Thank you.
That is the financial headlines. Tesla shares taking a hit this morning after another bombshell from Elon Musk.
CNBC's Silvana Henao joins us with that and other money news. Hey, Silvana.
Hey, Savannah. Hey, Joe. Good Monday morning to you. Yeah, so shares of Tesla, well, they are under pressure as investors raise concerns about the focus of CEO Elon Musk after he announced he's forming a new political party, ramping up his feud with President Trump. Now, a top tech analyst says Musk is Tesla's biggest asset. And while the company doesn't need him diving deeper into politics, he says it wouldn't be a shock if Tesla's board gets involved at some point, depending on how far Musk takes his latest effort. Meanwhile, F1 officially moves into pole position. The Apple original film generated $293 million at the global box office in its first 2 weeks. Now, that makes it the company's biggest movie ever, overtaking the entire theatrical run of Killers of the Flower Moon and Napoleon. Now, it's not a major bar to top, as Apple has only released 5 films in theaters, and Fly Me to the Moon and Argylle were considered flops. Now, F1 isn't close to turning a profit, as it did cost more than $350 million to make and market. All right, guys, and Krispy Kreme is bringing back a fan favorite, but you do have to act fast. It's adding chocolate glazed donuts to the menu today, only to celebrate World Chocolate Day. You can get half off a dozen with the purchase of any type of dozen at regular price, and they'll only be available in store and for pickup or delivery through Krispy Kreme's app and the website while supplies last.
All right, Savannah, thank you so much. We're going to pick up with that second story you mentioned, a blockbuster summer at the box office.
Yeah, but will star-studded films like what Silvana mentioned, F1 and the new Jurassic World, be able to turn the corner for struggling theaters? We're going to take a deep dive into the state of the movie industry next. Finally, this hour, we are heading back to the movies. Jurassic World Rebirth brought in over $318 million globally in its opening weekend. It's just one of several successful summer blockbusters breathing new life into the box office.
NBC News correspondent Camila Bernal takes a closer look at some of the season's highest-grossing films and how they may give Hollywood a much-needed boost.
It's a fight for survival these days.
These dinosaurs were too dangerous for the original park.
Not just for Jurassic World Rebirth from our sister company Universal Pictures, but for the traditional movie theater business as a whole. With the industry facing numerous challenges, theater owners and Hollywood betting big on summer blockbusters like F1.
It's all right. You're just worried I'm quicker than you.
The Brad Pitt movie racing to a $144 million haul worldwide on its opening weekend. And Tom Cruise's Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning totaling more than $560 million worldwide. But while Hollywood stars have tried to encourage audiences to return to the movies,
for all of us, when we can, please watch movies in the theater and let's keep the great tradition of the movie-going experience alive and well.
a recent poll of exhibition executives found that more than half believe the traditional movie-going experience has less than 20 years to go as a viable business model. Not everyone agrees.
Do you think that theaters have less than 20 years?
Absolutely not. I think movie theaters are here to stay.
Paul Dirgarabedian tracks box office results for ComScore.
I think the experience needs to evolve and change, but the basic movie-going experience, that communal experience of people being in a theater all together, being scared or laughing, I think that's here to stay.
Despite a slow start to the year, recent hits like a Minecraft movie and Ryan Coogler's Southern horror, Sinners, helping the summer box office get off to a hot start. No. Then the remake of Lilo and Stitch, making almost $960 million. And anticipation is growing for Superman, Fantastic Four: First Steps, Smurfs starring Rihanna, and others, boosting the 2025 box office outlook, which is shaping up to be a strong year, already grossing more than $4 billion. A far cry from the dire days of the pandemic.
Essentially, the box office went from hero to zero almost overnight. Then to be fast forwarding to 2025 and we're running ahead of last year is really a testament to the resilience of the movie theater experience.
And while the movie experience continues to evolve, one thing will never change. Summer moviegoers love to be scared right out of their seats. Jaws coming back to the silver screen next month for its 50th anniversary.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Maybe it's proof that watching a classic movie in theaters never loses its bite. Camila Bernal, NBC News.
Well, something for everyone this summer. That'll do it for this hour of Morning News Now.
Stay with us, though. The news continues right now. Good morning, and thanks for joining us on this busy Monday. I'm Savannah Sellers.
I'm Joe Fryer. Right now on Morning News Now, the urgent search and rescue efforts in Texas for those young campers still missing. The Lone Star State reeling from devastating floods that have so far taken more than 80 lives. We're on the ground with more on Mother Nature's holiday havoc across the South and what you can expect as you head out the door today. Also this morning, a looming tariff deadline on the heels of President Trump's big victory on Capitol Hill. The White House's promise of 90 trade deals by this Wednesday now looking more and more unlikely. Now a new rift forming between the president and billionaire Elon Musk over the administration's sweeping spending plan, all as Israel's prime minister touches down stateside for a pivotal White House meeting on Iran. We are covering it all. Plus, a stinky standoff in the city of brotherly love. Mountains of garbage on display for residents and tourists alike. A sanitation strike that's now forcing leaders to take action as union leaders stay on the picket lines. And later in the hour, the major retailers competing for your cash as a sizzling summer of red-hot deals kicks into high gear this week. Let's begin this hour with the urgent search and rescue efforts that continue this morning in central Texas. More than 40 people are still known to be missing in the city of Kerrville alone. That's about an hour northwest of San Antonio. But officials say they don't have an accurate list of who else could have been swept away by those raging floodwaters over the weekend.
At least 81 people have died. Hundreds have been rescued after months worth of rain fell in just a few hours on Friday. That triggered a historic 26-foot surge of the Guadalupe River in only 45 minutes. First responders are now combing through the wreckage as survivors take in the scale of the devastation.
There was a little boy who started floating downstream, and he was screaming, asking for help, but there just wasn't anything anybody could do at that point. I didn't know how I was gonna live with that. And thankfully, by the end of the day yesterday, I saw his face online, and he had been rescued.
Let's bring in Petty Officer Scott Ruskin. He's a Coast Guard rescue swimmer from New Jersey who was part of the first mission sent to help out in Texas. Thank you so much for joining us. And we understand you are being called a hero for helping to save the lives of 165 people. Many people have probably been hearing of Camp Mystic. This is the summer camp for girls where many are missing still. This is some of the worst flooding in the region. Tell us what the situation was like when you arrived at Camp Mystic. What did you see? What were the girls going through?
Yeah, of course. Good morning, guys. So we were tasked, our Coast Guard crew, me, myself, Ian Hopper, Blair Gujafor, and Seth Reeves, our full aviation rescue crew. We were tasked with going to Camp Mystic from higher ups. That's what we were asked to do. There was about 200 or so people, mostly all the kids. Were kind of trapped in there due to the flooding. There was no roads able to get them out. Boats weren't able to get them out. So we made a pretty treacherous route to get there. It took us about 7 hours. And even from Corpus Christi, it should have only taken us 1. But yeah, just due to the weather, we kept kind of pushing through. We're able to land on deck finally at Camp Mystic after a long flight. Again, shout out to the crew. Like, couldn't have got there without those guys. And we determined that the best course of action would be to leave me on scene. They'd have a little more space to airlift people out in the MH-65 with the Coast Guard. And then they left me on scene to help kind of triage and assess everyone and also just comfort these kids. I mean, yeah, you have 200 kids having the worst day of their life, just caught in a flood. They're here for 4th of July weekend, and yeah, they're dealing with a really bad situation. So really just trying to comfort them and get them onto the U.S. Army Air National Guard Blackhawks, who were able to land at a soccer field and an archery range nearby. So we were able to kind of get a lot of those guys out of there during my time on the ground. But yeah, just a lot of carnage as far as like damage to structures and debris, and yeah, just a lot of scared people and just trying to comfort them and get them to safety.
What did you do to try and offer some comfort? I mean, what were the needs in that moment as you were trying to get all of them out of there?
Yeah, for sure. It could have been as simple as just kind of holding their hand, like walking the little kids to the plane. They were pretty scared about it. Or yeah, a lot of them didn't have shoes. That was something I remember. I think the flood happened, a lot of them 1 a.m, they were telling me. So yeah, they didn't really have time to grab any shoes. Some of them were wearing 1 Croc, maybe none. So just being as kind as I could, just carrying them over to the Blackhawks, 2 in an arm or something, like whatever it was to get them to safety. And then just giving them hugs and stuff, like, again, like just trying to console these kids, like they're having a really bad day, and just let them know, like, hey, it's going to be okay. Like, I'm really sorry about this, but we're going to get you guys to safety now. Like, that's my goal. And that's kind of what we were doing there as a crew.
I understand this was your first time being called into action since you finished your training. What was it like responding to such a major event for the first time?
Yeah, it's a great question. Definitely just relying on my training, right? I mean, that's kind of all the experience I have is the training I received. Coast Guard rescue swimmers, we get a lot of extensive training. The schooling for it's very rigorous. It's got a low passing rate. And it's because, yeah, we want the most highly qualified individuals. I'm not anything special. I'm just another rescue swimmer, right? There's been 1,000 other rescue swimmers who kind of paved the way, and those guys are legends. And they were able to kind of set the example for the younger guys for like, hey, this is what the expectation is. So yeah, just really relying on that training and keeping, just remembering that I'm the voice of calm. They don't care about my experience level. They're not asking me how many rescues I've done or how long I've been in. They just know that I'm a rescue swimmer and I'm here to help them. So I'm just kind of relying on that.
You're incredibly humble, which is one of the reasons you're probably so good at doing what you do, and so many of your fellow rescuers. I have to imagine many of these kids, you were with them in this moment. They might have had friends or family who were missing at that time and just trying to figure it all out in real time. What was that like? What was just the hardest part of this?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think the hardest part about the whole definitely think the hardest part about the whole situation was just, these kids are having the worst day of their life. They're coming to you, asking for where their family members are, where their sisters are, and you just kind of have to tell them, hey, I don't know where they are, but I know we have crews doing everything humanly possible to try to find them, and we're doing everything we can. And I'm going to focus on my job right now, which is to get you guys out of here. And as soon as I was done, another crew relieved me as soon as we flew too many hours on the day, and they were looking for people too. So just trying to remind them we're doing everything we can, and just try to give them hugs and make it a little better for them.
At the point that you were there on the ground, was the extent of the potential for missing campers revealed? Were you all aware of that at the time?
Yeah, that's a good question. Really, again, we were kind of the operational level. We really didn't have any of that big picture details. We were really tasked with going to Camp Mystic and just grabbing as many people as we could out of there, which we were able to evacuate all the people who were in the area.
In the moment, you were obviously laser focused on the task at hand and doing what you could to rescue so many people. Now that you've had a moment to think about it and reflect, what goes through your mind?
Yeah, it definitely hasn't probably fully sunk in yet. Getting obviously a lot of media attention. I don't really think it's that deserved. There's a video right now of a Coast Guard rescue swimmer doing a hoist, which is way more dangerous than I think what I was in. Hoisting is one of the hardest evolutions we do, and that's that guy. That's Omar, I think, right there from Houston. He's doing the king's business right there, and he's not getting any attention. But it hasn't really fully set in. But I just know I had a job to do, and I think we all agree we have something to do. This is why we're here. And we're all willing to help, so we're happy to be here.
You all deserve so much credit, and for both the heroic action saving lives and also the comfort that you provided. Will you be back out there?
Yeah, they brought me back the last day. I left on, Saturday morning. Sorry, days are a little confused. I arrived Friday morning. We left at 6, got out of here on Saturday. The relief crew came in for us, and they flew me back in just to kind of do some media stuff and talk to people about it. But I brought all of my gear with me because I was like, well, if you're going to fly me up here, I'm happy to go back out. I got all my stuff. I'm not just here for some publicity. I'm here to kind of help people out. So brought all my stuff with me. So hopefully when all the media stuff's done, I'm going back out the door.
Scott Ruskin, you really are a hero, even though it sounds like you don't necessarily like hearing that. You are, and we so appreciate your time this morning. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. Appreciate it.
Today is projected to be one of the busier travel days following the holiday weekend, but storms across the South from hard-hit Texas to Maryland could cause problems for the millions of Americans still trying to head back home. NBC News senior national correspondent Stephanie Gosk is at Newark International Airport in New Jersey and joins us with the latest. Steph, good morning.
Hey, Joe, good morning. Heading home is never the fun part. And here in New York City, the TSA was projecting 2.2 million people were going to come through these airports. But at least in the Northeast, they weren't dealing with the weather. Out in Chicago, they had a ground stop at O'Hare on Sunday. And in the Carolinas, they were battling a tropical storm.
This morning, a huge cleanup is underway after Tropical Storm Chantal slammed parts of the Carolinas with up to 7 inches of rain and dangerous winds reaching 60 miles per hour. The intense storm eventually weakening to a tropical depression after making landfall, but still flooding roadways and causing a stretch of highway to collapse. This on the busiest travel day of the long weekend. An estimated 62 million people were expected on the roads over the 4th of July.
I think the main thing was to beat the holiday traffic back home.
The storms snarling travel on highways and causing chaos at airports nationwide, with more than 7,000 flight delays on Sunday, which the TSA projected as the busiest day, with an estimated 3 million passengers being screened. At Chicago's O'Hare, some passengers stranded for hours on end after thunderstorms triggered a ground stop.
I'm hoping my flight gets out of here.
But some travelers taking the crowds in stride and planning ahead for the uptick in traffic.
We actually did our boarding passes at home. We paid for the bags at home, and we just dropped them off.
Here in Newark, there's been very little in terms of traffic and delays and that sort of thing, a handful of delays. What people are going to be contending with who arrive at Newark today, when they walk out those doors, it's going to be that heat. From New York to Maine, there are 15 million people under a heat advisory, Joe.
All right, Steph, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Clearly lots of weather headlines this morning. So what can you expect this week? Let's get your morning news now weather.
Yeah, Michelle Grossman is with us this morning with the week ahead. Hey, Michelle, good morning.
Hey there, guys. Yeah, lots of weather headlines. As Stephanie mentioned, we are looking at high heat in the Northeast, well above normal for this time of year. But all eyes, of course, is on central Texas once again today. We have a flood threat. We're looking at storms right now, scattered showers and storms. Some of them are dropping heavy rain, and that will be the concern throughout this Monday. We could see rain 2 to 4 inches, 5 inches, but isolated amounts up to 10 inches. The streams, the creeks, the rivers are swollen. The ground is so saturated from the past few days. So we're going to be watching this very, very closely. Thankfully, by tomorrow, we see an ease, a drying in the pattern in portions of central Texas. To the north, we're looking at the northern plains, the central high plains today with the threat for severe storms. That includes damaging winds, hail, tornadoes, heavy rain there. And then as we head towards the east, notice all that green from New England all the way down to the Gulf Coast states and the Southeast states. We are looking at the chance for showers and storms, one from Chantal, especially in portions of the mid-Atlantic. Could see some flooding conditions there, too, with the remnants of Chantal. And also looking at a cold front that's stretching from New England into the Midwest. Along that front, we could see showers and storms, and those also could lead to flooding. So that is today very, very busy. Wednesday, we keep that rain in place from portions of the Ohio Valley into the Gulf Coast states, the Southeast, the Mid-Atlantic, parts of the Northeast. It will be stormy in spots, so wet again on Wednesday. And look behind there. We're looking at sweltering conditions throughout the Intermountain West into the northern plains, sunny in the Southwest, and also looking at dry conditions, thankfully, in most of Texas on Wednesday. We're going to keep it rain-free there, too, on Friday. Midwest storms on Friday in parts of the upper Midwest into the Great Lakes and then extending down into the Midwest. Notice that green popping back into parts of the east from New England into the Mid-Atlantic down to the Southeast. So we will see a wet week in parts of the east. The flood threat does continue in central Texas. This is on a 3-hour loop. This is radar. Now notice as we head towards the latest part of the loop, we're really seeing those storms popping and they're really filling in. And we are seeing heavy rain with some of these. That's where you're seeing those brighter colors. Also starting to see those lightning strikes, and that's all due to that heating that's popping as we go throughout the day. And this will be in effect, at least the flood watch, until 7 o'clock local time, because we do have the concern for more flooding. And that includes Austin, Brady, San Antonio. Where you see the green, that is where the flood watch is. Rainfall forecast anywhere from 2 to 4 inches. That's a general amount, but isolated amounts up to 10 inches, especially where you see those brighter colors south of Houston and right in and around Victoria as well. The flood threat continues in parts of the Mid-Atlantic, too. North Carolina was hit hard yesterday. Lots of people evacuated. Most of this is now moving into Virginia, into the southern parts of the Mid-Atlantic. This is what's left over from Chantal, and it's going to bring the chance of heavy rain because it's tropical moisture into parts of the Mid-Atlantic, and that includes into the Northeast also. So Philadelphia, Baltimore, Salisbury, Maryland, into Richmond, Virginia. We're going to watch that flood threat throughout this Monday. There's that soggy start. It's kind of a two system. We're looking at what's left over from Chantal, and then also that cold front that's going to bring the chance for some summer thunderstorms that could drop heavy rain also and just kind of create those nighttime or evening thunderstorms too. And then as we go throughout tomorrow, the cold front kind of sinks further to the south, so still keeping the chance for storms into the Northeast, strong storms from the Mid-Atlantic into the Northeast, and that includes parts of New England, too. Now, as we head towards the northern plains and also the central high plains, this is where we're concerned about severe weather. Notice that orange, that is a enhanced risk. That's 3 out of the 5 on the severity scale for places like Valentine, North Platte, and Sterling. And we are looking at the chance for damaging winds. Could see destructive hail, too, really large hail, and, of course, a few tornadoes are possible, too. Back to you guys.
Right. Just bring the umbrella everywhere with you this week,
No
it looks like.
kidding.
Thanks,
That's
Michelle.
what it feels like. Thank you.
Sure.
Well, now let's go to Washington, where a key tariff deadline is looming. Dozens of countries are on the clock, facing a Wednesday deadline this week to come to a deal with the Trump administration on tariffs or face higher rates starting next month. This comes just as President Trump's domestic policy agenda was signed into law Friday. And now the president's former advisor, Elon Musk, has just announced he's creating a new political party. NBC News senior White House correspondent Garrett Haake joins us with the latest developments on all this. Hey, Garrett, good morning.
Hey, Savannah, good morning. A lot of storylines here, but with the signature legislative victory now in the rearview mirror for President Trump, he's set to turn his focus this week back to international deal-making, both on tariffs and the White House hopes on Middle East peace. Fresh off his major legislative victory, President Trump now turning his attention to thorny tariff negotiations ahead of a 90-day deadline Wednesday for countries to strike a new trade deal with the U.S. or see tariffs spike.
The tariffs are going to be the tariffs. I think we'll have most countries done by July 9th.
The White House first setting a goal of 90 deals in 90 days after the president paused his so-called reciprocal tariffs in early April. But with talks stalling and just 3 framework agreements announced, the administration is now planning to set some countries' rates by letter and urging larger trading partners to finalize deals by August.
President Trump's going to be sending letters to some of our trading partners saying that if you don't move things along, then on August 1st, you will boomerang back to your April 2nd tariff level.
And while Republicans continue to celebrate the passage of the president's massive tax and border bill, the legislation's $3.3 trillion price tag appears to have once again severed the president's on-again, off-again alliance with the world's richest man, Elon Musk. Musk announcing he's forming a new political party, the America Party, writing on X, backing a candidate for president is not out of the question, but the focus for the next 12 months is on the House and Senate. Trump blasting Musk on social media as having gone, quote, off the rails and calling him a train wreck.
I think it's ridiculous to start a third party. Third parties have never worked, so he can have fun with it, but I think it's ridiculous.
And here at the White House tonight, the president will host Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. This is their first in-person meeting for these two leaders since the U.S. joined Israel's air war against Iran and the ceasefire that the president helped force to pause that conflict. President Trump says seeking a permanent deal with Iran will be one major topic tonight, as will Israel's war in Gaza, with the president saying he's optimistic a ceasefire and hostage deal could be reached with Hamas this week. Savannah?
All right, Garrett, thank you very much.
Much more to come on this hour of Morning News Now, including more on that desperate search and rescue operation now underway in Texas as the death toll from those dangerous flash floods ticks higher.
Up first, though, after the break, a trash crisis stinking up the city of brotherly love this morning. Why many Philly residents are crying foul over a sticky sanitation situation. Ooh, that was hard in the height of summer. Those stories and more up next. We are back now with the latest on a strike by the largest blue-collar workers union in Philadelphia, which is causing mountains of smelly garbage to pile up in the summer heat. Now, the city's having to implement an emergency plan to provide critical services, including sanitation. NBC News correspondent Emily Ikeda is in Philadelphia. She joins us with the latest on this one. Oh, hey, Em, good morning.
Hey, Savannah, good morning to you. You can see and let me assure you smell why residents are eager for this strike to end, because trash collectors are among the thousands of city workers to walk off the job. To make matters worse, amid sweltering temperatures and the holiday weekend, now residents actually have to physically bring their trash to collection sites like this, while curbside pickup has been paused as thousands of workers, not just from the sanitation department, but from recreation, the airport, 911 dispatch, call for better wages.
In the city of brotherly love, these sights and smells of summer aren't what residents and tourists had in mind.
It stank, and it's getting worse because of the heat.
It's bad, yeah. People are walking by and holding their nose.
Heaps of trash are piling up across Philadelphia after thousands of city workers walked off the job a week ago.
Philadelphia works because we do.
The city stuck in a standoff over pay with District Council 33, a union representing some 9,000 municipal workers. And the fallout felt over the holiday weekend.
I never, ever, ever want to disappoint my fans.
Hip-hop legend LL Cool J dropping out of a 4th of July concert in a show of solidarity with union workers on the picket line.
There's absolutely no way that I could perform when I know that people are out there fighting for a living wage.
As the city and the union battle over pay raises and benefits, residents are seeing and smelling the effects.
Nobody wants to smell that when they wake up and, come outside for a breath of fresh air.
Hoping for resolution as the grueling strike wears on.
I hope this gets fixed. I hope people get paid more and get rid of the trash and, get back to life.
And a judge ordered essential union members like those with 911 dispatch and the water department to continue to work through the strike over safety concerns. The last time this union went on strike was back in 1986, and it lasted for nearly 3 weeks. Negotiations are expected to resume soon, and you know everyone in this area is hoping that they come to a resolution quickly, Savannah.
All right, Emily, ooh, thank you. Sorry you're out there.
There was a terrifying race car crash in Georgia over the weekend. 3 spectators were hurt on Saturday when this car at the Sonoya Raceway spun out of control, slamming into the barrier. Now, we're not showing you the exact moment it hit people in the crowd. 2 of the 3 injured fans were taken to the hospital, but have since been released. The other person was treated on site. Now to Australia, where a woman has been found guilty of murder after a deadly family dinner.
Claudio Lavanga joins us from Rome with that and more world news in 60 seconds. Claudio, good morning.
So, Vanessa, good morning. Well, that's right. A woman in Australia was found guilty of murdering none others than 3 relatives of her husband after she cooked them a meal seasoned with deadly poisonous mushrooms. A court in Morwell, a town about 2 hours' drive from Melbourne, charged 50-year-old Erin Patterson with the murders of her mother-in-law, father-in-law and aunt-in-law. They died after she served them a meal containing death cap mushrooms, a deadly poisonous mushroom. Patterson pleaded not guilty, saying the deaths were accidental. Let's go to the latest on the war between Russia and Ukraine now. On Sunday, hundreds of flights in Russia were either cancelled or delayed after Ukraine launched over 100 drones on Saturday and overnight, a day after Kyiv was hit by what authorities there say was the largest attack on the capital since the start of the war. Russia's defense ministry says its air defenses shot down more than 150 Ukrainian drones, but it's unclear how many were launched in total and if any hit the targets. And let's end this tour of the world in Peru, where archaeologists announced the discovery of an ancient city. The city was named Penico. It's about 3,500 years old and was discovered 120 miles north of Lima at almost 2,000 feet above sea level. Archaeologists unearthed 18 structures, including ceremonial temples and residential complexes, and discovered sculptures of human and animal figures and necklaces made from beads and seashells. They believe the city once served as a key trading hub between communities living on the Pacific coast, the Andes Mountains, and the Amazon. Back to you guys.
I love how we can still just find an entire city. just like, there it is, a city.
Seashell necklaces and everything. It's amazing.
Thanks, Claudio.
Thank you. Well, ever since the movie Notting Hill was released, the London neighborhood where it was set has been a must-see for tourists. Now, though, locals are getting fed up with people crossing property lines to get the perfect picture. NBC News International correspondent Danielle Hamamdjian shows us how some residents are fighting back.
It's a sunny day in one of the most popular neighborhoods in London, with some of the most Instagrammed streets in the world. Welcome to Lancaster Road in Notting Hill, where those colorful homes are a feast for the eyes at every hour, every minute, every second of the day. Just ask Julie, Amanda, and Dana, who flew in from New Jersey this morning. When you think of Notting Hill, what comes to mind?
The movie and probably this iconic street.
Notting Hill, featuring Julia Roberts and Hugh Grant, a signature film of the 90s.
I'm also just a girl, standing in front of a boy, asking him to love her.
But in 2025, they're just influencers and tourists standing and relentlessly posing in front of these Notting Hill properties, asking for the best angle, often for a like on the gram.
Residents are so fed up with the constant stream of tourists that some of these quirky, bright-colored homes have faded to black. So what do you think of their decision to paint their houses black?
I don't blame them because every day, even 9 o'clock, still some tourists aren't here.
Bold, dark, and yet still they keep snapping. These Spanish tourists are undeterred, posing on the doorstep, seemingly making themselves at home.
Do you know why they've painted their houses black?
Yes.
They don't want people on their doorstep.
Yeah, I know.
It's a similar scene unfolding every day outside 66 Perry Street in New York, known to fans around the world as Carrie Bradshaw's one-bedroom apartment in the show Sex and the City. This chain has done little to deter tourists, and the owner has had enough. So has the real resident of the Breaking Bad house in Albuquerque.
Yeah, get him, Joanne.
Who was recently filmed using a water hose to keep the public away. Back in Notting Hill, the door eventually opens and those Spanish tourists come face to face with the owner. He's polite, but equally annoyed. Everyone is asked to leave until the next group shows up. Danielle Hamamjian, NBC News, London.
I don't blame him. Good use for the hose. All right. Coming up, the urgent rescue efforts underway this morning across Texas as those devastating floods continue to leave communities shattered.
Yeah, after the break, one family's desperate search for answers, drawing help from beyond the Lone Star State. That's next.
Welcome back. Search and rescue efforts continue in Central Texas this morning after what has been described as a 100-year flood. I want to show you video of Coast Guard air crews lifting people from flooded RV rooftops in Kerrville over the weekend, helping them escape the rising floodwaters. Coast Guard rescue swimmers stayed with flood victims, offering medical help while working to evacuate hundreds of people.
Yeah, we just spoke with one of those heroes, and as of this morning, at least 81 people are reported dead after torrential rains caused the Guadalupe River to rise more than 20 feet in just 45 minutes on Friday. Well, this morning, an 11-year-old boy from San Diego is speaking out on his experience after surviving the flood while at a camp in the area.
Some counselor from the other rooms which got flooded came into our cabin and said there was a flash flood. Now, we didn't actually know those one because we were higher up, like more elevated. But eventually we looked outside and we just saw like an ocean out there. It's just like completely destroying everything.
The National Weather Service has extended the flood watch over Central Texas today as even more rain is expected to hit the region.
We're joined now by Jamie Pagard-Barrett. She is soon to be traveling from California to Texas to search for her dad, Richard, his wife, Carol, their dog, Poppy, all of them still missing in the aftermath of the floods. Jamie, we appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. We know this is such a difficult time. I know your sister and brother are also going to fly into Texas to help you with the search. Just tell us first, how are you and your family holding up right now?
We're just trying to do what we can. I think just the only thing getting me through is being on social media and getting their faces and names out there. I feel like I've had hundreds of people in the area reach out to me, even just trying to locate their dog Poppy. I just can't believe the amount of kindness and prayers I've gotten from strangers. Sorry, just seeing their pictures on the screen too is really emotional. This is just something my dad, knowing my dad and the way he is an avid weather watcher, especially with living in Texas. If he would have expected anything like this, he wouldn't have been at that campground that night.
It's something we're hearing a lot of is people just not expecting it.
I know he's a strong swimmer. He's never been scared of any type of body of water in his life. He was a surfer. He lived I grew up in California. I still live in California, and he was an avid surfer. I know he can handle, those big waves and pulling him down. But I know also was speaking with Carol's daughter that Carol's deadly scared of water. And she couldn't swim. And I know my dad would do everything he could to try and save her and others. And so we're still trying to remain hopeful. But as the days go on, it just really, trying to wrap ourselves around like worst case scenario for our family. And me and my siblings feel that just being out there and being closer to everything is just going to, I think, maybe help us, just give us a better feeling of that we're doing something to help find them.
And we understand your plan is that you'll head right to the site where someone has found your father's truck. What do you know at this point? What information do you have about where they were when someone last spoke with him and this vehicle that was found?
So my aunt last spoke with him on July 3rd in the afternoon, getting a brisket recipe from him. And that was the last time we spoke with him. He been at the campground. They've been there, for past couple months while they're trying to relocate to the hill country. And I think we would know whether they're there. My Carol's daughter spoke with somebody from the campground and said that they, she saw them on the cameras, that they were, in there that evening and stuff as well too. And as far as regards in finding the truck, a nice gentleman named Joe, was searching some debris and found the truck and was going through belongings, trying to see who it belonged to. He found a prescription bottle with my father's name on it, searched my father's name. That's how he saw all my Facebook posts and reached out to me and sent me pictures of the truck and his belongings. We were able to get some of the belongings from a family friend that's out in the area right now. The car is pretty mutilated and mangled, and there was a trailer with it, but we're not sure if it was their camper or not yet, because it doesn't look really much like a camper anymore.
I have to imagine it's been a bit of a helpless feeling these last few days,
Mm-hmm.
which is one of the primary reasons you're going out there. When you get there, are you hoping you can connect with local authorities or with rescue teams? What's your plan once you get to Texas?
Right now, I think our plan is just, me and my brother and sister, I think we really just need to see his truck and get a visualization of that in the area. And then I think we're just going to go from there. I do plan on going to maybe like local shelters and where animals that have been rescued have gone to also, and hope to find their dog as well. Poppy, she's with their like pride and joy, I think, right now also. And I think I'm hoping that if I find Poppy alive, it's a good chance that maybe I could find them alive too.
Absolutely. This must be tough just emotionally thinking about what you're about to be up against, but I know you're going to have your siblings with you. How are you all sort of preparing?
I don't know how I'm in a mental state where I can communicate with people right now. I think we're just trying to just hold on to prayers and hope that, that there's a miracle is going to happen, and we're kind of just like going with that. But also in the back of my mind, I'm preparing for the worst as well. On Friday, when I got the call, I wasn't in a great state. My dad, he's my daddy. I love him, and I can't imagine a world without him in it. So we're just trying to, pray that they're going to be found and they're safe somewhere.
We're praying for that for you too. If there's anything else you can share with us this morning, what do you want that to be? We're my whole family. My dad's one of 7 siblings, and Carol is as well. We have a lot of people out there praying for them, and we're praying for the rescue teams out there, that they remain safe and that God's able to guide them to find the missing. There were a lot of people taken from their campground, the HTR campground where they were at. I believe there's probably about 40 people missing from that campground alone, whole families also. So if everybody can just pray for all the campers, everybody missing, and that, I know the death toll keeps rising, but we're just praying that we still find people alive. Hope. You said that word, hope, a lot. We are hoping that a miracle can happen. We're thinking of you and your family. Please keep us updated, Jamie, okay?
No, thank you so much.
We will be praying for sure. Thank you. Well, now let's get to more on Camp Mystic. That's this beloved all-girls camp that has been devastated by this flood. The camp is a long-standing staple of this community, with generations of girls spending their summers there. And officials say at least 27 lost their lives and another 10 are still missing. This morning, Today Show anchor Savannah Guthrie is on the ground in Texas with more on the heroic actions of counselors and staff members who saved hundreds of young campers.
For nearly a century, Camp Mystic has been a safe haven for young girls who spent summers there, forging friendships that last a lifetime. But early Friday morning, the idyllic retreat was ravaged by torrential rain.
You'd see kayaks like in trees, and it was kind of horrific. It didn't look like Camp Mystic anymore.
And raging floodwaters that rose 30 feet in a single hour. Heroic counselors and staff members jumped into action, saving more than 700 campers caught in the storm. Like Emma Foles, who officials say helped get her 14 campers to safety. The camp's director, Dick Eastland, died while trying to save girls from the rising waters. His grandson writing, "If he wasn't going to die of natural causes, this was the only other way. saving the girls that he so loved and cared for. His impact will never leave the lives he touched. Staff member Brooke Beard says she managed to escape through a cabin window as waist-high water rushed in.
We had no clue about what those little girls were going through at that time.
Soon, word of the damage and the dozens missing began to spread.
Girls were looking for their sisters and their cousins, and there was a lot of tears.
Brooke says in those moments, the camp counselors stepped up to help anyone they could.
So many lives were saved because of 18-year-olds.
These photos depicting the heartbreaking aftermath as we're learning some of the names of the young lives lost, including 18-year-old Chloe Childress, a camp counselor who's being remembered for her compassion, 9-year-old Janie Hunt, a first-time camper, and 8-year-old Renee Samastrala, whose uncle wrote she will forever be living her best life at Camp Mystic. Now, the tight-knit community leaning on each other and their faith. At a nearby reunification center, emotional embraces between campers and their families. And this touching image, a bus full of girls evacuating through scenes of unthinkable destruction.
Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.
Uniting in song.
I'll shout it from the mountaintops, praise God.
Camp tradition of friendship and faith.
Has come to me, I want to pass it on.
Our thanks to Savannah Guthrie for that report. In a statement, the camp thanked the community, first responders, and officials for, quote, the outpouring of support. Organizers also asked for continued prayers as they coordinate with state and local authorities in the search for the 10 missing girls.
Coming up, we do want to get to some other headlines this morning, including taxes on tips and overtime now becoming a thing of the past.
When we come back, what President Trump's landmark budget law might mean for Americans. 4 million tipped workers and those putting in some extra hours. We're watching your wallet next. We're back now with a closer look at the impact of President Trump's sweeping domestic agenda that's now been signed into law.
The legislation will have a big effect on taxes on tips as well as taxes on overtime. Under the new law, tipped workers will also be able to deduct the total amount of their tips from their taxable income.
For more on this, we're joined by our friend and one half of our economic dream team, Caleb Silver, editor-in-chief of Investopedia. Thanks for that little laugh this morning, Caleb. Good morning. So about 2.5% of the U.S. workforce, that's also 4 million workers, tipped. They were tipped employees in 2023. That is according to the Tax Policy Center. Now, 60% of households with tipped workers would receive a tax cut. Walk us through this and what somebody would need to know when filing taxes and when it comes to their paychecks.
Yeah, there's a little bit of fine print here that's worth noting, but this is important for around 4 million people. I was one of those people that relied on tips in the early part of my career. But you have to have a Social Security number. Got to keep that in mind. And it's only the first 25,000 that are exempt from taxes as long as you earn less than $150,000 as an individual or under $300,000 as a couple. But after that $25,000, you're going to get taxed on your tips as ordinary income. That's about 7.65%. That's the Social Security and Medicare. So it helps to a certain extent, but you have to absolutely work in a qualified institution. Not all restaurants and leisure and hospitality businesses are going to allow this. The federal government is going to decide which ones. And again, you have to have a Social Security number.
It's interesting. I waited tables in different states, and in some I got a paycheck, and in some they just gave me a paycheck that said zero. And I was like, oh, I guess that's how this works here. Let's talk about another thing that's temporary, which is overtime pay for workers. So through the end of 2028, employees will be able to deduct overtime pay from federal income tax. Tell us what we need to know about this.
Yeah, again, there is a cap on that, an income cap, the $150,000 and the $300,000 for couples. So up to a certain extent, you can not pay taxes on that overtime pay, but then it kicks in back at the ordinary income level and you're taxed at whatever your tax rate is. So it's useful for people that are working those extra shifts, but you have to, again, be a qualified worker, work for a qualified organization or a company that the IRS allows this to happen, and then you are capped at a certain amount as well. So useful for people. It's definitely a lot of people in those industries that are working a job and a half, and also for those relying on tips. But again, remember the caps and remember that there are stipulations.
Also, Caleb, quickly tell us about this new savings savings account for children.
Yeah, the Trump accounts. This was the president announced this back in June to the great fanfare. He's talking about creating an account for children born in the United States between January 1st, 2025 and December 31st, 2028. You have to be a citizen. Your parents have to have a Social Security number. You have to be born in the U.S., and the government will kick in $1,000 to an account once you open it with a bank or financial institution. And as a family, you can contribute up to $5,000 a year into that account. It's a great way to get young, really young people started on that investing journey, because you can invest it in an index that tracks the stock market. Very useful, but again, there are stipulations there. We used to call this baby bonds. This idea has been around a long time. It's a little bit more formalized this time, and I think you can start this process as soon as the end of this year.
All right, Caleb Silver, thank you so much. Great to see you.
More money news. TikTok reportedly prepping a U.S.-only app as talks over a potential sale ramp up.
CNBC's Silvana Henao joins us with that and other money news. Hey, Silvana.
Hey, Savannah. Hey, Joe. Good Monday morning to you. Yeah, so a deal to sell TikTok's U.S. operations is reportedly close. The information reports the Trump administration is working on a sale to a group of non-Chinese investors, including Oracle, with TikTok's parent company ByteDance keeping a minority stake. Now, TikTok staff is also reportedly working on a new version of the app for release in U.S. app stores on September 5th. The current version would leave the app stores and stop working entirely in this country next March. Meanwhile, an upstart rival to AI chip giant NVIDIA is eyeing expansion. Growth, which is backed by Samsung and Cisco Systems, has established its first data center in Europe, located in Helsinki, Finland. Now, it's looking to take advantage of rising demand for AI services. The Nordic countries are a popular spot as the region has easy access to renewable energy and cooler weather. Now, growth has been valued at just under $3 billion. And, well, if you're booking a last-minute flight this summer to London or Rome, well, it's going to cost you less than last year. But U.S. travelers are finding their dollars, well, they're just not going as far as they used to, and that's because exchange rates haven't been too kind to Americans. The dollar index, which tracks the greenback against other major currencies, well, it suffered its worst half-year performance since 1973, and, well, that's largely due to President Trump's global trade war. Fortunately, though, cheaper airfares are cushioning the blow, with tickets to Europe down about 10%, guys.
I keep hearing about
Give and take.
those crazy deals. Thanks, Silvana.
In many parts of this country, it wouldn't be summertime without seafood, but one state is struggling to keep up with demand for one of its most famous dishes as blue crab populations dwindle. NBC News correspondent Kathy Park went to see what locals in Maryland are doing to help keep it on the menu.
A Maryland summer wouldn't be complete without blue crabs on the menu, a cornerstone of the state's culture and economy. Just ask the locals.
Been eating crab since I was a kid.
Why are blue crabs such a big deal around here?
I think it's just the culture too, like all of us sitting at the table, it's just family time.
It's also a lifeline for thousands of watermen, reeling in tens of millions of dollars for the region annually. But the iconic catch is in trouble.
This year's population numbers are the second lowest on record since the survey began in 1990. Very feisty little guy here. The juvenile crabs is what has been low over the past 6 years. And juvenile crabs are an important factor because they are their window into the future.
Fewer crabs mean consumers will have to shell out a lot more. One seafood market reporting to our affiliate, prices are up roughly 20% compared to last year.
How much are crabs going for a dozen?
Right now, medium 75, large 95, extra large 120, and jumbos 140.
Do you remember how cheap they were back in the day?
I can remember the family getting bushels of crabs for like $35.
That's it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Experts point to a perfect storm of threats. Federal cuts potentially impacting conservation, climate change, pollution, and invasive species like the blue catfish. Watermen like Luke McFadden see the impacts daily.
What are some of the biggest challenges that you face every day when you're crabbing?
Definitely just the cost of everything. The margins are so slim in the industry because the cost to go catch crabs is so high. I mean, it cost me $1,000 to leave the dock, whether I catch anything or not.
At 29, this first-generation waterman is no rookie, starting at just 18.
How many 29-year-olds are looking into becoming watermen?
Not many. I was fortunate, I guess, to get into it like 11 years ago.
Yeah.
Now, you would need a couple $100,000 to get into crabbing. The average age of a crabber in Maryland is actually 58. So,
wow.
Yeah, I'm 29, so I probably bring that down quite a bit.
But this millennial is putting crabbing on the map with millions of followers and counting.
They still have some green on the shell or blue. They're not done yet.
Showing the world the ups and downs of owning and operating a small business while having a little fun with it, too.
That's a nice crab there. It's another full-time job. It's just kind of like doing 3 full-time jobs, catching crabs, selling crabs, and making, videos. So
Where do you get that passion from?
I don't know. I just kind of like, it's what I love to do, and it's what I want to do, and I'm just too dumb to quit, I think.
From TikTok feeds to crab feasts, the blue crab is more than just a meal. It's critical to the state's identity. And with so many livelihoods on the hook, protecting them has never been so urgent. Kathy Park, NBC News, Annapolis.
All right, coming up, get ready to shop till you drop because Amazon's Prime Days is right around the corner.
But Amazon isn't the only retailer racking up all these sizzling summer deals this year. So where can you find the best bang for your buck? We're watching your wallet next. Welcome back. Maybe you've been to the theater recently to see the new F1, the movie. Well, in real life, our friend Lando Norris took the win at his hometown race, the British Grand Prix, over the weekend. Even in heavy rain, the more than 160,000 fans were treated to an action-packed race. Oscar Piastri, that's his teammate, led for most of the race, but was handed a 10-second penalty for driving erratically during a restart. And that was all it took for Norris to nab the victory. The win helped cement McLaren's dominance in the Drivers' Championship standings. Norris now trails his teammate Piastri by just 8 points as the drivers prepare for the second half of the season. In the movie, you'll see a lot about the teammate drama because it is a thing. Okay. They're teammates, but they're competing.
They're competing. It's interesting.
It is.
All right.
Yeah.
And you can watch it in the movie. You can watch it in real
life.
All right. The biggest week of summer sales is about to kick off.
That's right. And topping the list of companies hoping to reel in customers, Amazon with its Prime Day deals. But other major retailers are set to go head-to-head with the e-commerce giant with their own offers as well. NBC News business and data correspondent Brian Chung is here to help you bag the best bargain. Brian, good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. If you're stretching out like I am for those deals, all that scrolling, Amazon Prime Day kicks off at midnight tonight to score those deals. We've been tracking prices on a variety of items, but with those looming tariffs threatening price increases, it's possible that this week's big summer sales from Amazon and its competitors could be the best we'll see all year. The hottest summer deals are about to sizzle.
Our favorite days of the year are coming up, our Super Bowl, if you will, Prime Deal days.
Amazon is set to kick off their annual Prime Day at midnight, extending the sale from 2 days to 4 this year, as competitors offer week-long sales. Target's Circle Week and Best Buy's Black Friday in July are underway, offering deals on gaming products, bedding, and towel sets, and back-to-school supplies, too. Then there's Walmart, starting a 5-day summer sale tomorrow, promising 30 to 50% discounts with huge deals on wireless headphones, soundbars, and patio furniture.
I really just wanted to go ahead and start planning for Christmas because I don't know what's going to happen with the economy and the finances.
All those deals could be an opportunity for shoppers to tariff-proof their holiday purchases.
What should consumers expect to see when they go on the Amazon website?
These are going to be the best prices of the year.
Our NBC News price tracker is following hundreds of items across major retailers, with many product costs, including toys and apparel, remaining steady. But some, like kitchen appliances and electronics, have gone up by hundreds of dollars.
Add anything that you're planning on buying to your cart now and screenshot the prices.
Amazon says Prime Days are a way to avoid potential price hikes, with discounts on categories ranging from summer apparel to cordless vacuums, expandable luggage sets, and Fire Sticks. Shoppers are projected to take full advantage of the deals, with consumers set to spend an estimated $23.8 billion between July 8th and 11th, up almost $10 billion from last year's summer sales.
You have some of the consumers who just see really strong deals. Then you also have consumers who are kind of trying to stockpile on goods.
That could be one of the biggest summer shopping events ever.
It makes sense for customers, whether it's for macroeconomic reasons or budget or just, every day wanting to make a dollar stretch further. Prime Day is a great way to do that.
So if you're looking to find the best deals, make sure to cross-check multiple retailers for the lowest price. And with all the uncertainty and potential supply chain disruptions later this year, it could be good to plan ahead on what items you may need for things like back to school, Halloween, and even, dare I say it, for the holidays as well.
Oh, we talked about Summerween last week.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
Never too early, get those displays ready.
Right.
Oh,
They're probably cheaper now, you'd think.
Yeah,
exactly. All right. Thanks, Brian.
That's good tips, though. I got to, get myself
Yeah,
organized.
get those carts ready. I know you're already loaded up.
Carts ready. It's like the lottery. Just wait to see if any of the things in the cart
if
actually
they,
drop.
Yeah, that's smart. That's smart. I love it. Thanks, Brian.
You do it for this hour. Morning news now.
Stay with us, though. The news continues right now.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.